bring you more details to that. This is our top story. A deadly terror strike at the Boston Marathon has killed 3 people and injured at least 140. The death and injuries were caused by twin explosions that went off at the Boston Marathon finish line. New York, Washington, Los Angeles and San Francisco all put on a high alert, and cell phone services have been shut down in Boston to prevent remote detonations of any more possible bombs. Authorities looking for a dark-skinned or black person with a black backpack. People in Boston being asked to be vigilant for the next couple of days. President Obama is being cautious this morning about calling this a terror strike. The FBI has taken charge of investigations. They say they are beginning criminal investigations, but it could possibly evolve into a terror investigation.
And Michelle and I send our deepest thoughts and prayers to the families of the victims in the wake of this senseless loss. People shouldn't jump to conclusions before we have all the facts. But make no mistake, we will get to the bottom of this. And we will find out who did this. We'll find out why they did this. Any responsible individuals, any responsible groups will feel the full weight of justice.
They were banged up bad, severe lacerations, amputees, a lot of shrapnel. You know, they were pretty big explosions. They were banged, a lot of blood everywhere.
To our left, toward the finish line, 2 huge bombs, smoke coming out of buildings, and then something else to the left of us, and the whole thing stopped and they sent us away.
A big, huge explosion while we were having lunch, and everybody ran for the doors and windows and were sheltered under tables.
Yeah, I work in the Prudential, but I don't know what's going on.
The elevator shook the whole building. It was quite a blast, 2 of them.
When I made the turn, I mean, it was like the first pop, boom, and then another one, boom, and then another one, boom. It's like one after the other. It was just one big cloud of smoke.
3 people dead in those twin explosions. The BBC now reporting that the London Marathon will be reviewing its security. That marathon is to be held on Sunday. Also cutting across to CNN now, which is getting us the latest update.
Talking to law enforcement authorities, Piers, this is the kind of situation that law enforcement and other first responders train for, this huge mass casualty situation involving terrorism. But surprisingly, it really hasn't happened in this country in any great degree since 9/11. So they feel a bit lucky that up until this day, this bad thing hasn't happened. But now they have to face it, and they have to face it in cities all across America.
Joe Johnson, just to get over now, thank you both very much. I want to turn to CNN contributor Juliette Kayyem. She's also terrorism analyst, and CNN contributor Paul Cruikshank, and CNN national security analyst Fran Townsend, and Rafi Ron, who's the president of New Age Security Solutions and the former director of security at Tel Aviv Gurion Airport. Welcome to you all. Let me start, if I may, with you, Juliette Kayyem. You're the former US Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security. How serious a blow is this to America's ongoing war on terror?
I think it's just too early to tell. I think one of the important aspects of the post-9/11 world is also the ways in which we become much more resilient to these kinds of attacks. We know the terrorist threat has changed. It is like whack-a-mole, or it could be foreign terrorists, individual foreign terrorists. It could be domestic terrorists. We're reserving judgment right now. And so really the measure of a society is not simply, is it attacked or not? Because we know that we are vulnerable. We know that we're an open society. We know that we love watching the Boston Marathon. It's really how do we respond? And I think in that regard, this has been pretty remarkable. I mean, in the sense of how quickly they could get the runners off of that street onto Commonwealth Avenue. They could get people together with their families, and that the investigation has already started just about, half a block away. I think that's how you measure success. Can you bounce back? And I think in that regard, it is looking pretty good so far.
Rafi Ron, you've had to be responsible for security at places like Tel Aviv Airport and so on. Was this a soft target, do you think? And as a result, will all events of this nature, future marathons in America, there's one this weekend in Salt Lake, will they all have to now be submitted to much higher degrees of security?
Well, I think that we have to get used to the idea that when we fight terrorism, there's no 100% protection that we can provide the public. And what we are facing is a process that we have witnessed in many other parts of the world too. And that is when you start protecting your high-value targets, terrorists don't give up. They simply go to choose other targets that were not considered as high value as they were before. So when we started implementing better security on airports and in the aviation system and in other high-profile locations, obviously there are thousands of other locations that remain more vulnerable and become even more vulnerable. So this is kind of I would say a competition between us and the terrorists that goes on with tragic result as we have seen today.
Fran Townsend, the FBI would be obviously raking over any possible clue. Two areas I would imagine would be extremely useful: closed-circuit video, of which there was a lot in this area, and also cell phones, because all cell phones were locked down pretty quickly, presumably to try and stop them using them to trigger any devices. That indeed was what they were doing, or he or she, the suspect. We don't know who it is, obviously. In terms of how they go forward, are those two areas going to be key?
Those two, and I would add one more, Piers. I would also add any of the forensic data that can be gleaned from the bomb site. So the container that the bomb may have contained the bomb. If they've got unexploded, undetonated devices, any DNA, fingerprints, anything you can get off there to link it to an individual or to a group, to look at whether or not there's a signature in terms of the construction of the device, all that will be critical to them solving who perpetrated it and why.
Paul, we don't actually know as a fact yet. It's been reported by the New York Times and indeed the Wall Street Journal tonight that there were maybe up to 3 more devices which were unexploded. Some of them may have been detonated by police later. We don't really know yet. How important could that be? Because could they have, from those devices, if they got there in time and could study them, can that be a key lead, as Fran was suggesting, to getting to where this came from?
Well, the more devices there were, the more ambitious this attack would have been. Maybe more people would have been involved, but it's not impossible that a lone wolf could do this. We saw in Norway 2 years ago, one guy, Anders Breivik, launched two attacks in 2 different locations, so one guy can do a lot. But all these sorts of things will provide a lot of clues. And the forensics on these recovered devices will be absolutely key. I spoke to an explosive expert just a little while ago. Within minutes, if not hours, they can get some sort of idea of the types of materials inside, and that will be absolutely crucial. Also, they'll be looking very closely if there's a claim of responsibility that's posted by some group.